Welcome to the first ever U Sports weekly segment on CBC Sports that we are calling The U. I'm Savanna Hamilton, and this fall we're going to keep you updated on everything that you need to know regarding U Sports from school to school, coast to coast. And the Vanier Cup, we all know that it's coming around the corner, so we'll have a lot of football talk coming your way as well. But before we get into all that action and everything, just like any game, we got to know the rules in order to play. And there has been a major rule change specifically regarding transfers in the first and second year of eligibility. And to break it all down and provide his thoughts, we brought one of the best in the business, that is a national broadcaster and one of the best reporters, Arash Madani. Arash, what you got for me? What do you make of the news?
Well, Sav, great to see you. Congratulations on the show. You wondered when NCAA went NIL and transfer portal and all hell breaking loose south of the border. You wondered what kind of impact that was going to have on U Sports. And when you immediately see eligibility rule changes, you say to yourself, this has to be in response to that, right? Turns out it isn't. Matter of fact, this has been 5-6 years in the making, and so many people are saying, okay, well, you can transfer now without penalty. You don't have to sit out a year. Well, it's not quite just that. And so I think one of the main things before we dig into the weeds is this is not a response to what's happened in the States. This is more about, okay, what can we do to make sure that there's going to be a level playing field for the 20, 25 or so athletes in their first couple of years who are thinking about changing programs, schools, locations, urban, rural, and making it really not a cumbersome penalty because they want to switch what they're doing.
You mentioned the weeds. Let's get into the weeds of it. So walk me through exactly what it is and why there was a need for change.
Well, I mean, you think about what student athletes are getting themselves into. You go into a university situation, you're being recruited in high school, you're being pulled in so many different directions. And for the most part, when you hear of students who are transferring in Canada, usually happens in their first 2 years, right? You're going into a new environment, you're going into a new city perhaps, and something you're altogether not familiar with. And what really, Sav, what people found out was, okay, it's either in that first year, often the first semester, or the second year is that student athletes are like, I want to change programs, I want to change schools. It's not necessarily athletics related, but in the past, you'd have to sit out a year. If you left your school after the first year and you went to another university, you couldn't play for a year. Now they're allowing a fall portal between October 15th and December 15th for athletes to enter. And that gives student athletes, again, in their first 2 years, really an unencumbered transfer opportunity. I think what's important to point out here, and you and I were talking about this before the show, this isn't a scenario where in season you can leave. If you're not happy in November and December, if you're a basketball player, a volleyball athlete, you can't just leave one school and go to another for the winter semester. But what it means is you don't have to sit out an entire year if you want to leave a school. If at Christmas of your first year, you're saying to yourself, this isn't for me, I'm going to leave. Okay, the following season, you can suit up. And that's a big change. And that's something that's really going to help some young student athletes as they kind of pursue a degree and a career.
You know, I personally am a big fan of the rule change because I think, as you mentioned, it gives just a lot of options for people, young people who are forced to make tough decisions at a very early age of where do you want to go to school. And we all know that your school is also your first contact of network. And as a U Sports athlete myself, a former one, I think it's natural that you always have doubts if you chose the right school, the right fit, especially if you're like all of a sudden being salty over your playing time. Like, or maybe I should transfer.
Or just leaving home for the first time.
Or just leaving home for the first
time.
You
don't even know what you're getting yourself into, right?
Exactly. But no, I'm just for the record, I love my time at TMU. But what does this mean for athletes maybe a little bit later in their third and fourth year?
The rules for them don't change.
Yeah.
And what a lot of the data has shown is that there are fewer upperclassmen, I put that in air quotes, I don't know if that's an archaic term or not, third, fourth, fifth year students who are transferring within U Sports schools. So that remains the same right now. And eventually, right now, if you graduate from a program and you want to, if you finish your degree at TMU, like when you were a student athlete playing basketball there, and you wanted to go do a master's degree somewhere else, Queens, McGill, whatever, you were able to do so if you were moving on to a master's degree. There are some graduate programs that do not get qualified there. The next step in the U Sports evolution for transfers is effectively, once you get your degree, will you or won't you become an unrestricted free agent? That's the next step that they're going to be discussing ahead. They're not quite there yet. And I will just add one more thing on this, Ab. This wasn't unanimous.
Really?
Yeah, when the powers that be, and we're talking about coaches and we're talking about administrators, even the conferences got involved. There were some people who wanted none of this. There were some people who wanted a lot more of this. This was almost a happy medium that they came to, where, okay, the first couple of years, every athlete almost gets a mulligan. Okay? So that's where they came to on this. So this is just the beginning of a long process because, we've heard transfer portal for a while now, and that's where things stand as of today.
All right, Rash, are you ready to get into some football?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go from east to west. We got to start with the champs, the reigning champs, that is Laval. How are they doing this season?
They're rolling. They're Laval. I mean, same old song and dance. Just another day at the office over there.
Okay. Laval doing Laval things?
Laval doing Laval things.
Okay.
They pack the house for home games. They win football games. They have themselves the same quarterback that won them a championship last year, Arnaud Desjardins, doing his thing.
Okay.
Sav, this is shaping up to be, as always in Quebec, another Laval-Montreal showdown. These are the two blue bloods in Quebec University football. It's either the Carabins or the Rouge et Or who are always there at the end. And they're on a collision course for the last game of the regular season to play. And effectively, the winner of that game is going to host the Dunsmore Cup, the Quebec Championship. And they're by far the best two teams in the conference. Now, we've seen McGill put up a fight this year and kind of enter the conversation. McGill hasn't even been there since like 2002 or something like that. But I'm very confident that when the dust settles in early November, it's going to be Montreal-Laval one more time for a Quebec title. Okay,
so you got McGill as a sleeper team potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll be watching. We'll be watching on that one. Let's move over to Ontario. Let's talk about Western and Laurier, some of the powerhouses.
And the final game of the OUA regular season, Golden Hawks Mustangs.
Okay.
Undefeated versus undefeated. They come in at this point 6-0. And you get the sense that's going to be a preview of what the Yates Cup is going to be, the Ontario title, and who's going to get home field in that game. And there were so many questions, Sav, coming into this season about Laurier, right? They get to the Vanier Cup last year. Taylor Elgersma, their all-world quarterback, goes on to Green Bay Packers training camp and throwing touchdowns in preseason games. You're saying to yourself, Laurier is going to take a step back, right? Cal Wither has stepped in at quarterback and has just continued to ball. And the last 3-4 weeks, Sav, he's just been on a tear. Completion percentage in the high 70s over the last month or so. In the last 3-4 weeks, touchdown interception ratio, 13-2. He's thrown for more than 300 yards each game the last few weeks. Like, this is going to be the game. I was at Western for their homecoming, beat down a McMaster. That's a really good football team. We're going to get 2 episodes of this. We're going to get it at the end of the regular season, and we're going to get it again in the Yates Cup.
Okay. I'm excited for that. Wow, that's a lot of action happening here in Ontario. But let's move over to the West now. Let's talk about Regina and Saskatchewan. What you got?
Well, last year, it was Regina who knocked off Saskatchewan in the Hardy Cup. And they've remembered that in Saskatoon. So
they took that personally.
Well, there you go. Earlier this season, the Huskies knocked off Regina 22-20. But if both teams win out, the Hardy Cup, the Canada West Championship, will be played at U of S. And football's booming right now in Saskatoon.
Oh, yeah.
In the province.
Yeah.
I mean, their CFL teams rolling. Regina and Saskatchewan are the 2 best teams in the conference. They had a football day in Saskatoon last week. They had 2,000 flag football kids come out. They had a high school game. They had a girls' flag game. And here's the showdown between the Rams and the Huskies. What's going to happen? So Sask still has the memory of what happened last year to them. They know that they would be hosting a bowl game on campus if they end up winning the Hardy Cup. And so this is going to be the rivalry to watch, the in-province battle between Regina and Saskatchewan.
You kind of touched on it a little bit. I want to kind of get back into it a little bit, though. The key dates, what you got? Like what stands out to you in terms of what we should be watching?
Conference championship games, November 8th weekend across the country. Loney Bowl out east, Dunsmore in Quebec, Yates in Ontario, Hardy. And then the winners of those, I mean, the Mitchell Bowl is going to be amazing this year. You have Ontario going west. So one of likely Western Laurier to face likely Sask or Regina. And then it's Quebec that's going to face the Atlantic provinces. Those bowl games are November 15th. And then the Vanier Cup, the national championship game, November 22nd.
Arash, this is why you're one of the best in the business. Thank you so much for your time and perspective. I appreciate it.
Always good to see us out.
All this football talk got me hyped up for what's coming this fall. And we're going to talk more than just football. We got soccer, we got cross country, and so much more sports to cover. Actually, even on that note, did you know that the Canadian women's rugby team placed second at the World Cup, only falling to a very established team in England? And oh, get this, 29 out of the 32 athletes on Canada's team, they either played in youth sports or are currently playing in youth sports. So that's pretty cool. That's what we call a tease in show business. We're going to talk about that more next week. Oh, and before I go, this just in, CBC Sports will be broadcasting both the men's and women's youth sports hockey gold medal game happening March 22nd, 2026. So make sure you mark your calendars. You can catch it on CBC TV and CBC Gem. Thanks for watching CBC Sports. I'm Savanna Hamilton. Be great.